Hello and welcome to today's book summary. We're diving into The Millionaire Mind by Dr. Thomas Stanley, a leading researcher on wealth in America. Throughout his career, Stanley has been obsessed with one big question: how do people who are financially set for life actually live? This book is the third in a series following The Millionaire Next Door and Stop Acting Rich. All three have been bestsellers around the world. The Millionaire Mind, which we're focusing on today, came out in 2001, but its lessons are still spot on for today's world. While Stanley's earlier books looked at how millionaires in the late 1900s handled their money, The Millionaire Mind casts a wider net. It includes people worth over $10 million and zeroes in on those who aren't just financially free, but also have control over their time and feel spiritually fulfilled. The book goes beyond just money matters, exploring how these folks approach education, careers, relationships, and life in general. What's really interesting is how much these financially independent people have in common in terms of their experiences and outlooks on life. These shared traits offer wisdom that holds up no matter when or where you live. One cool thing about The Millionaire Mind is how it takes all this data from different people and creates a profile of average millionaire. Even though the people in the study were pretty diverse, they made a lot of similar choices and had many shared experiences. To make things easier to understand, let's call this composite millionaire John. We'll look at how John, who represents your typical financially independent person in Stanley's research, goes about his life. This will give us a good look into the mindset and lifestyle of people who've truly achieved financial freedom. In 2000s, John's net worth stood at $4.3 million, putting him right in the middle of Stanley's survey participants. Most of this wealth was in cash and investments, as John had already paid off his house and cars, leaving him essentially debt-free. John didn't inherit his wealth. He's what we call a first-generation millionaire. He grew up in a regular middle-class family that wasn't particularly well off. As a kid, John was a social butterfly and played on the school basketball team. His grades, though, were just okay. Teachers often gave him a hard time, saying he wasn't trying hard enough and cared more about having fun than studying. But John had thick skin and didn't let these comments get to him much. Luckily, John's parents never gave him grief over his grades. When he brought home a not-so-great report card, they'd encourage him and help him plan for the next test instead of scolding him. One day, John came home looking pretty down. When his parents asked what was wrong, he told them his friend Brian had gotten all A's, while he only got one A, mostly B's, and even a C. His teacher had said she was disappointed and warned that if John kept this up, he'd end up working for high achievers like Brian. John's dad, hearing this, stood up and said, "Don't pay attention to your teacher. Sure, Brian got all A's, but that's not everything. He spends all his time studying, doesn't have many friends, and doesn't do any activities outside of class. If I were hiring, I'd pick you over Brian. You might be a B student, but you're a great, well-rounded B student. You're a leader in your class, an athlete, and you've got lots of different skills. I bet one day Brian will end up working for someone like you. Don't let your class rank decide your future. If your teachers and counselors were really that good at predicting success, they'd be making millions on Wall Street or running casinos in Las Vegas by now." John's school experience is pretty typical for many people who end up financially independent. In Stanley's interviews, most of these folks were B students, some even C students, with A students being the minority. Their average SAT score was 1,190 out of 1,600, above average, but not Ivy League material. While 92% of these financially independent individuals had college degrees, very few went to top-tier universities. Many of these successful individuals faced criticism about their grades when they were young, from both teachers and classmates. One of the people Stanley interviewed, Patrick, remembered how in elementary school, students were seated based on their grades. The neat kids with high scores sat in the front 2 rows, average students in the middle, and the kids with poor grades and messy handwriting at the back. Patrick was always in the last 2 rows. Today, Patrick has a PhD, runs 3 businesses, and is worth over $10 million. He jokes that his handwriting is still terrible, only his secretary can read it. Thinking back on his classmates from the back rows, Patrick wondered, did those kids start believing they were really stupid? Did they give up on being successful early on? I think many probably did, but I was different. Throughout my life, lots of people told me, you can't do it, you don't have what it takes. But I want to say, don't let these put-downs kill your ambition or stop you from succeeding. If I had believed what my homeroom teacher said, I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. Patrick's attitude is common among financially independent individuals. Stanley calls this a powerful mental armor. It's the ability to ignore negative labels like bad student or mediocre from people in authority and not let these define who you are. Many financially independent individuals actively look for their strengths, use these to encourage themselves, and aren't afraid to question or challenge feedback from teachers, professors, and critics. Where does this mental toughness come from? For many, it starts at home. Most financially independent people, like young John, had caring, attentive, and level-headed parents. These parents didn't push their kids to succeed through harsh words, put-downs, or comparing them to others. When faced with poor grades, they'd usually say things like, "You can do better. We'll tackle these issues together. Let's come up with a new study plan. I'm not great at this subject either, but I know you can get it." Or, "It took a math genius their whole life to create calculus, so don't worry if you don't get it in one night." This family setting builds strong mental toughness, giving a person a built-in defense system. This armor starts forming in childhood and gets stronger as they grow up, becoming more resilient over time. Stanley thinks this mental toughness is key to the business success of these financially independent people. In business, even a great loan application can be turned down multiple times. An entrepreneur can work non-stop for years and still go bankrupt, and many might fail several times before succeeding. Who's more likely to keep going through repeated rejections and failures, having the guts to start over again and again? It's those with strong mental toughness. Like steel that needs to be hardened, people also need to be tested. Many self-made millionaires believe that criticism and rejection from so-called experts actually drove their eventual success. These setbacks helped them develop inner strength and boosted their determination to succeed. Let's get back to John's story. As a young adult, John got a 1,190 on his SAT and went to a mid-level university. In college, John's grades were average, but he was passionate about making money and achieving financial freedom quickly. For the first 8 years after graduation, John worked for several companies, but the pay wasn't great. Eventually, he realized that working for others wouldn't make him truly wealthy, so he thought about starting his own business. Having worked in the car industry for 4 years, he decided to look for opportunities there. His last job as an employee was as an assistant manager at a car company. An interesting thing happened once. His boss asked him to sell an old truck to a scrap dealer. He did, for $500. 2 weeks later, when the company needed a used engine for another truck, the boss sent him back to the same scrap dealer. To John's surprise, the dealer took him to the very truck he had sold 2 weeks earlier, removed the engine, and charged them $500, the exact amount they had received for the entire truck. Plus, they had to give an old engine in exchange, on top of the $500. This experience was both funny and eye-opening for John. He realized that many parts of old trucks were still valuable. If he had taken apart and sold the parts of the truck they had sold for $500, he could have made 5 to 10 times that amount. At that moment, John saw a big business opportunity. After thinking it over for a night, he quickly quit his job. 2 weeks later, he started his own used truck parts business. His first purchase was a $500 junk truck, which, when taken apart and sold in pieces, gave him 7 times his initial investment. This was the start of his journey to becoming a millionaire, eventually building a net worth of over $4.3 million. John's experience shows a typical path to wealth for financially independent people. Starting a highly specialized business in a niche market, focusing on solving a specific problem. Among all the financially independent people Stanley interviewed, entrepreneurs were the biggest group, about 1/3. Starting a business is the most common way to achieve financial freedom. Their view on risk is interesting. While most people think working for a company is safer, these entrepreneurs believe working for others is riskier. They see working for themselves as the safer option. Their typical path to wealth, like John's, involves working for others when they're young, exploring different options, finding an industry they like, gaining experience for a few years, and then starting their own business when they spot an opportunity. This typical experience reveals 4 key points. 1. Try different opportunities before picking one to focus on deeply. Mathematically, the best career planning approach is to try various options and fields when young, then choose one path to concentrate on in middle age. This matches the real experiences of financially independent people, though many of them decide on their path earlier, often after just a few years of work. 2. The field they ultimately choose to focus on is usually one they truly love and are interested in. 86% of financially independent people believe loving their work is crucial for success. 81% think it's important to fully use their talents. These 2 factors were chosen most often among all factors. In other words, passion and skill are seen as the most important factors when choosing an ideal career by these financially independent individuals. They believe work shouldn't just be a way to make money, but a career they're willing to put their heart into. Many continue to wake up early and go to work eagerly even after becoming financially free, simply because they enjoy what they do. 3. The third point we can see from the typical wealth-building experiences of financially independent people is how they approach opportunities. Remember how John decided to quit his job after just one night of thinking when he discovered his business opportunity and started his new business 2 weeks later? John's whole experience is based on a true story of a financially independent person. For many financially independent people, this is a common pattern. Stanley found that when they discover a business opportunity, they make quick decisions and act fast. As Stanley puts it, it's not enough to just spot opportunities. You must have a strong desire to grab them. Lastly, it's worth noting that these financially independent people usually find opportunities in niche areas and then start specialized businesses. However, these niche areas are often not traditionally seen as high-status fields. For example, John's used truck parts business might not seem very glamorous to many. Similarly, many financially independent people run niche businesses like John's, perhaps developing a small software solution for a specific problem. So why were these individuals able to spot these niche business opportunities while thousands of others didn't? Stanley's research showed that many talented people in pursuit of typically high-status jobs ignore other opportunities around them. They compete hard for jobs as doctors, lawyers, certified public accountants, and other so-called prestigious positions, overlooking wider possibilities. Of course, some people do notice these wider opportunities, but are unwilling to lower their perceived status. They would rather struggle in competitive, respectable fields than stoop to grab potentially profitable niche opportunities. Let's pick up John's story. John, his wife Lily, and their 2 kids are living the good life, debt-free with $4.3 million in the bank. But what does their day-to-day actually look like? If you're picturing a life of luxury cars and sprawling mansions, think again. The family's 3-story home is nice but far from flashy by local standards, and their car is decidedly middle of the road. Step inside, and you'll find some tasteful antique furniture, but nothing too ostentatious. Lily gives us a tour of their walk-in closet upstairs. It's meticulously organized, with plenty of designer labels, though not the latest collections. She explains with a grin, "Most of these I snagged from high-end thrift stores. You'd be amazed at the Gucci and Dior rich folks donate. I love fashion, but it's a money pit if you're not careful. This way I get my fix without breaking the bank. If something doesn't fit quite right, we have it tailored. All that saved cash? It goes towards things that actually hold their value, like that antique dresser over there. John's fancy leather shoes are probably the priciest things in here, but they've lasted him a decade of business meetings, so I'd call that a solid investment. We've had the soles replaced twice, but the uppers still look brand new. Heading back downstairs, we peek into a storage room packed with bulk household supplies. In the kitchen, there's an odd sight. A detailed map of the local supermarket taped to the fridge, with every aisle and product section clearly labeled. Lily explains it's for planning their weekly grocery run. Their 8-year-old pipes up, "They'd be lost without me and my coupon skills." Lily laughs. She's not wrong, our little bargain hunter saves us a fortune. John and Lily's approach to spending is pretty typical among the financially savvy. Despite their hefty bank account, they live relatively frugally. They're coupon masters, bulk buyers, and firm believers in repairing rather than replacing. To them, smart money saving isn't cheap, it's just good sense. They don't blow cash on depreciating assets like cars or this season's must-haves. Many, like Lily, are thrift store connoisseurs who aren't above having things tailored. They'd rather invest in pieces that hold or gain value, like quality antiques. When they do splurge on big-ticket items like sofas or shoes, they choose quality that'll last for years, opting for repairs over replacement whenever possible. Their grocery strategy is a perfect example. That map on the fridge? It's not just quirky decor, it's part of a carefully planned assault on impulse buying. The book's research shows that over 2/3 of shoppers are susceptible to spur-of-the-moment purchases, wandering aimlessly and filling their carts with stuff they don't need. Our financially savvy friends? They're all about the list and the game plan. Interestingly, many parents like John and Lily turn coupon clipping into a family affair. It's not just about saving a few bucks, it's about teaching kids the value of $1 from an early age. Stanley's all for this approach. He argues that involving kids in meal planning, coupon organizing, and deal hunting isn't just about groceries. It's teaching them vital skills in organization, planning, and information management that'll serve them well throughout life. Most self-made millionaires swear by the power of planning and organization in reaching financial freedom. Many trace these habits back to childhood, often crediting their parents, especially their moms, as planning pros. A whopping 80% believe that careful planning is the key to tackling big problems and keeping a cool head when business gets tough. So, Stanley's advice to parents is, get your kids involved in all sorts of family planning, from budgeting to chore charts. He stresses that kids learn by example. If your home is organized chaos, that's what they'll internalize. Simply lecturing about being organized won't cut it. You've got to walk the walk. Now, don't get the wrong idea. These folks aren't penny pinchers afraid to spend a dime. They're more than willing to shell out for things that matter. Besides investing in quality and value-retaining items, they're big believers in buying time. They have no qualms about outsourcing tasks they'd rather not do themselves, whether it's house cleaning, home repairs, or landscaping. You might wonder, isn't do-it-yourself more cost-effective? Doesn't hiring help go against their money-saving principles? Not quite. They're thinking bigger picture, weighing the face value cost against their personal opportunity cost. Sure, spending a Saturday morning scrubbing floors might save you $100 on a cleaning service. But what's your time really worth? Even if it's your day off, couldn't those hours be better spent upgrading your skills, researching investments, or networking for new clients? Landing one new customer could be worth way more than that 100 you saved on cleaning. What about those who've already retired? They still tend to outsource specialized tasks or things they'd rather not do themselves. Why? Because DIYing unfamiliar tasks often leads to costly mistakes. Think about it. Installing your own water heater only to fry the core, or throwing out your back while moving heavy furniture. Not exactly money savers in the long run. Stanley once visited a high-earning cartoonist's home during a paint job. When asked why he wasn't painting himself, the cartoonist's response was eye-opening. Not only could he earn more in the time it would take to paint, but he also pointed out a crucial risk. What if I fell off the ladder? I could die or end up permanently disabled. Is saving a few bucks worth that? This cartoonist, like most self-made millionaires, is acutely aware of life cycle costs. Climbing a ladder could jeopardize his entire earning potential, a risk they're not willing to take. So while these folks are frugal, they're smart about it. They save where it counts, not just for the sake of pinching pennies. Now, let's talk about how they spend their free time. You might expect the wealthiest Americans to be jet-setting around the world, right? Stanley's research paints a different picture. Only a small percentage indulge in stereotypical rich people activities each year. We're talking 3% on luxury cruises, 4% skiing the Alps, and 20% vacationing in Paris. Some of these trips are even business-related. So what do they do when they're not working? Two main things stand out. They're constantly looking for ways to grow their wealth. A whopping 85% work with tax experts to optimize their returns. That's their top priority. They enjoy low-cost or volunteer activities. 81% visit museums, 68% participate in community events, and 67% tend to their gardens. This isn't about being cheap, it's about what they genuinely enjoy. As they told Stanley, some might see their lifestyle as living on the cheap because most activities don't cost much. But here's the thing, whether you're wealthy or not, life's best moments are often free or inexpensive. Museum visits, hosting friends, studying finances, or cheering at your kid's sports game. These aren't costly, but they're what most financially free people love doing. The silver lining? You don't need to be rich to enjoy the same things these millionaires do. Conclusion. To wrap things up, let's look at Stanley's 8 key elements for living a self-determined life. Remember, building wealth is about living well. No matter where you are on your financial journey, these principles can help you live a more autonomous and fulfilling life. 1. Understand the keys to financial freedom: hard work, integrity, and focus. 2. Never let academic performance limit your earning potential. 3. Have the courage to take calculated risks and learn to overcome fear. 4. Choose a unique, profitable career that you're passionate about. 5. Be selective in choosing a spouse. High earners partners often share traits like practicality, patience, empathy, and a strong capacity to learn. 6. Run a high-output household. Many financially free individuals prefer repairing or renovating over buying new. 7. Approach house hunting like the financially savvy do. Actively search, learn, research, and negotiate. 8. Aim for a balanced lifestyle. Quality time with family and friends doesn't have to cost a fortune. Congratulations! You've just digested another book.